I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and welcome back to Genesis Does. This week is a very special episode, the worst of Genesis Does. My friend Jason is a big fan of videos where I trash really bad Sega Genesis games, so I decided to make a compilation of 3 of the worst Genesis games that I played on the channel. Enjoy! What I'm about to tell you could conceivably pass for all you need to know about Skitchin, but that sentence itself is a lie, because you don't need to know anything about Skitchin and you never need to play this. Nevertheless, Skitchin was developed by EA Canada, which probably explains why Vancouver is the very first city you compete in. And that competition? Well, you're an inline skater who likes to ride his skates while holding onto cars, trucks, and vans, the art of which is called skitching, whence the game gets its titular name. Players have the character defending and attacking computer-controlled opponents while racing to the finish. Winning races earns you money, and incidentally, wiping out and losing races costs you money, but it's the most ludicrous amount of money. At one point it said, your character is in the hospital, your hospital bill is $10. Okay, even in 1994, I don't believe that for 1 minute. I went to the hospital in the 90s and I know it cost more than $10. Maybe in Vancouver. Maybe because Canada has national health care and we don't. Maybe that's like your copay when you go to the hospital. $10, eh? Sorry to all my Canadian friends for the A joke there. Anyway, the game has a similar design structure to Road Rash according to Wikipedia, but that too is a lie, because Road Rash was actually fun, and this is not. The one thing it's probably right about is when it says, and I quote, following its release, it received generally negative reception, unquote. That I 100% believe. Now let's talk a little bit more about skitching itself. The term, abbreviated from skate hitching, is the art of hitching a ride by holding on to another vehicle. It is also referred to as, believe it or not, bumper bitching, bumper shining, pogying, bizzing, skid hopping, bumper jumping, and hooky bobbing. If you have ever used any of these terms in your life, please leave a comment below and tell me that you actually know them and have spoken them in a sentence heard by other people. I feel like JonTron in that episode where he plays California games and he talks about swood this, swood that. What the fuck is a grommet? Exactly. I don't think real people use these words, but I will take their words for it. Here we see some actual gameplay, starting with the 7.2 kilometers, not miles, kilometers. This game screams made in Canada in every conceivable way. I'm surprised my character doesn't have a Maple Leaf jacket on. Well, then he'd be a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and then Peter H. would be playing this video instead of me. So, shouts out to Peter, the hardest of hardcore Canadians. Now, I wasn't trying to jump over these cars. I was trying to actually speed up, but apparently holding up does not speed you up, it jumps. It's like we're playing one of those fighting 2D side-scroll games where up is your move to leap over your opponent and turn around and face them to attack them. So, I'm getting my ass wiped out by every single car just by trying to figure out how to get up enough speed to actually be able to catch a car. And then when I try to get back on the road, I get plowed into again. Are you getting the idea this game is not fun yet? Because it sure as fuck is not. There is very, very, very much a good reason that this only came out on Genesis. Sometimes Genesis Does means, well, it was exclusive because they wanted to be on the most popular console and the best-selling console, and they didn't want people to buy it on the other console and have that game dilute the audience. They wanted to be with the best and go with the best. Not in this case. They could have put this shit on anything and it would have still stunk like a turd. But let's see if I can actually catch a car this time. Well, the guy in front of me certainly managed to. Me, I'm just tripping over road obstacles as I try to get up enough speed. Yeah, there's not much chance I'm catching a car this way. The way you catch it is not even much sense whatsoever. You have to wait for a car to go by you, but then if you're not like right there when it goes by you, you've got no chance because you can't speed up to catch it and you can't slow down to match it if it's going slower than you. You've just got to catch a car when it's going by. There's so many idiotic things about this game. It would really boggle the mind to try to explain them all. So maybe I'll try to say something positive. And it's not the fact that when I let go of the car, I immediately wiped out. You would think my momentum would have kept me going forward. Here's something positive I'll say. I like the mountains in the background. It's a nice looking visual. It's not done super well. It's okay. At least they tried. I got told the other day by Jesse of Ivory Tower that saying, God bless them, at least they tried, is the southern way of saying you're fucking stupid. I'm not even trying to do that on purpose because I'm not southern, but I guess if God bless them they tried is the way of saying that, then that pretty much describes this game. And I mean no offense to the programmers because I'm sure they're all talented people. They just got assigned a great steaming pile of garbage and were told, make something out of this. You know, this game screams it's trying to be cool, hip, and rad, from the sound effects to the premise to everything about it. It's just, it's that whole 1990s aesthetic. And take this from somebody who actually went to college in the 90s. It was trying too hard to be hip. It was neon colors and attitude, like, dude, rad, gnarly, cool. Hey, man, what's up, bro? All that kind of stuff, you know? Skateboarding, skating, bright jackets, loud clothes. It was not cool at all, which is why I was never cool and never pretended to be cool and can't ever be cool even today. I'm the antithesis of cool, much like this game itself, with its characters trying to catch rides, roller skating behind cars, and hitting each other with their fists while sporting mohawks that don't look the least bit realistic. Not even Chuck Liddell, the Iceman, realistic. Just bad. And that's the other thing that I will try to say positive about this game is the momentum of the skater moving forward is somewhat realistic. The wind catching their jacket as they're hitching a ride on the back of a car, slightly realistic. The fact that your protagonist is wearing a helmet is at least an indication that somebody had some level of safety in mind, even though at the beginning of the game it screams a loud warning in epilepsy-inducing seizure flashes that say, don't imitate this at home. It's like the 1990s version of Jackass. But still, when I give the animation those fair and small praises, I have to immediately note how unrealistic the cars themselves look. They're all uniform and boxy. There's no style to them. There's no curvature to them. They don't even look like anything more than a paper outline slapped onto a 2D surface. Like, I could draw a car on a piece of paper, slap it on the screen, and it would be as realistic as the car I was just hitching a ride on. Not believable. Nor are these buildings that we're going by. They are also flat pieces of paper slapped on the screen. They are trying for a 3D aesthetic, but it's like they didn't take the time to do it right. And why did I go splat just for hitting the ramp there? You would think I would have landed on my skates, but apparently that killed me because the camera is zooming all the way back out. And once again, I have a hospital bill of $10. Oh, this game. Well, let's give credit where it's due, or blame where it's deserved, one or the other. The producer was Stanley Chow. The designer was David Warfield. The programmers of this festering pile were Lance Wall, Daniel Wesley, Lee Ingraham. The artists were Tony Lee, Jack Snowden, and Cindy Green. The composer, Jeff Van Dyke, has enough of a reputation and a pedigree that he's actually got a Wikipedia link, and he's the only person on this entire list who, I guess, is honored in that fashion. Let's see what else he's done work for. Hand of Fate, and Need for Speed, Alien Isolation, for which he won a BAFTA award. Oh, he worked on Medieval and Medieval 2. Spartan Total Warrior, which is a GameCube game I need to pick up at some point. Need for Speed and Need for Speed 2. AFL 99, NHL Hockey. Okay, he did some things here and there. This game, I wouldn't say would be a career highlight for him, because as far as everything 90s generic goes about this game, the music is also like generic early 90s metal / grunge. It's like it's like a bad Metallica cover band meets a bad Pearl Jam cover band meets a bad Nirvana cover band and forms a horrible cover band just to compose music for video games. So, sorry, Jeff, you ain't getting a BAFTA for this one. No trophy for you to cheat. Maybe a pizza trophy. Anyway, I think this is about as much as we can get out of Skitchin. The only way I've found to have any success at this game is to just grab a car, hold on, and do nothing. Is that fun? Whose idea of fun is that? A video game where you almost do nothing to win. The whole point of a video game should be you immerse yourself in a pseudo-realistic or complete fantasy environment, one or the other, and you enjoy the immersion as you get to run around doing things or shooting things or traveling to places or playing things or solving puzzles or doing something. Do is the operative word there. Poder, to do. You want to do something. And all I did was hitch a ride on the end of a car and basically do nothing but keep other people from hitching a ride on the car. And somehow I wound up in second to place. So what the fuck? This game was developed by Sega Technical Institute, the same people behind Sonic Spinball, and released in 1995 exclusively for Mega Drive and Genesis. The exact dates are as follows, or semi-exact dates, because the ever-reliable Wikipedia just says September 1995 for North America. It's even less specific for the European Union, just 1995. But apparently, in Japan, it came out on an exact date, September 22nd of that year. And for my friend Ryan Taylor, this came out in Australia in 1996. So, as usual, Ryan, I expect to see your comments on whether or not you remember or don't remember playing this game. The plot is that you are a scientist named Dr. Daniel Kane. You were sneaking into your research lab to find evidence that crimes were being committed at the place you used to work. But unfortunately, your colleagues discover you sneaking in, and they do something nefarious to you, and they think they've disposed of you, but instead, their experiment to eliminate you has actually turned you into a angry, sentient, toxic ooze. This probably should have been a Toxic Avenger game now that I think about that, but it is what it is. Players control Dr. Kane as a puddle of ooze with a head, who can move around and use two attacks. One is stretching out a maneuverable sliver of ooze, whose length is only limited by how much ooze he currently has. Players can also spit gobs of ooze, which reduce the size of the ooze. Enemy attacks also deplete the ooze puddle as well, and the ooze will die if he either becomes too small or if his head is attacked directly. He can also die by dropping off the edges of certain areas or staying on a drain for too long, which I believe I just did right there. Numerous puzzles must be completed in order to progress from one level to another. An optional goal of the game is finding and collecting all 50 helices in order to get the game's good ending. Now, let me be perfectly honest with you, because as I noted, I have this in my Oklahoma Video Game Expo pickup list, or as it was known then, the Oklahoma Gaming Expo. They didn't change the name to OVGE until later. But when I picked this game up, I picked it up strictly because of the name. I knew nothing about it. I just thought, ooh, this sounds like a 1950s, 1960s sci-fi horror type movie. One of those thrillers, so suspenseful thrillers, now brought to you in full panoramic 3D. Figured it was like The Blob or The Thing. I mean, it's called The Ooze, right? So I figured any game with a name like that had to be interesting. And I wish I could say it was. I wish I could say this was fun to play. It's difficult to control because this blob is very... I mean, you can move up, down, left, right, diagonal, and all that, but because you're leaving a trail of yourself wherever you go, you're always at risk of being hit. You have an enormous hitbox, which ironically only grows larger if you absorb the ooze of your defeated enemies. So you're constantly at risk of being hit anywhere you move. And because your body size decreases when you try to use attacks, you can run out of attacks very quickly. It's like having limited ammo. And the amount of stage hazards makes it a challenge, but it also makes it a difficult challenge. And this is one of those non-rewarding challenges where it feels like the game is just punishing you for being badly designed. This top-down perspective, this limited range of motion you have because you have to get all of your blob around objects. This control scheme where you can only stretch out your ooze or shoot parts of yourself and thereby risk dying just by trying to defeat enemies. And these barrels of ooze, you would think you could like refill your ooze by touching them or destroying them, but instead they explode, so they offer no health benefit whatsoever. If there was like stage areas where you could like add more ooze or refill your ooze or suck up ooze to increase yourself or replenish your ammo, this might be more fair, but it just becomes tedious to try to complete these levels, and you'll get to a point where you'll almost complete it, and then you'll get a really cheap death from some enemy that you can no longer shoot because you don't have enough of yourself left, and it gives you a direct headshot because you've shrunk down to a small size, or it just has really good aim, like this robot sentry thing over here. And I nearly got to the exit on this one, but right as I was about to get there, I wound up going down a drain, so a stage hazard got me. And that's just the general frustration of the ooze in general. It gives you a slightly generous 3 lives to start with, and then unless you've got the stage memorized and you can keep enough of your blob together at one time, those 3 lives will evaporate as quickly as the mass that makes up your body. You can, in some respects, tell that the people who made Sonic Spinball were the ones behind this because the controls have that sort of slipperiness that Sonic Spinball did, but in that it was forgivable because it was a pinball game, so I kind of expected a little bit of looseness because it was trying to emulate a pinball table, and unlike a lot of people, I actually enjoy Sonic Spinball to this day. I don't consider it a mainline Sonic the Hedgehog game, but I consider it a pun intended spin-off that is enjoyable as its own thing outside of that. So I would much rather play Sonic Spinball than this, is what I'm trying to say. I applaud the Sega Technical Institute for trying to do something innovative and try to make something interesting outside of the norm of normal video games, but trying is not the same as succeeding. And perhaps I lost my copy of the Ooze with good reason, because now I remember why I haven't played this one in a while. It's just not that good, y'all. It's not like Skitchin is not bitchin', the one that Jason seems to think I am singularly focused on, but no, Jason, this might actually be as bad or worse. I don't know if Skitchin is the worst of all time, but Views is definitely not great. It has a great name and it has a great idea, and it doesn't have great execution. Currently, it goes for $9.53 loose and $20 complete in the box. But would you want to pay those prices? Well, let's give you a little look at the gameplay as I talk about what the Wikipedia entry says. And I'm not going to read too much of this because I think you can very quickly get the idea just by seeing what I'm doing. Mad scientist Dr. Machino has sent his robots to pollute the earth and endanger the wildlife. Aided by Killer Bee and Rad Rhino, Awesome Possum sets out to destroy the robots, put a stop to the mad scientist, and save the world. Pretentious much? No, not at all. This is the Captain Planet and the Planeteers of Sega Genesis video games. They really leaned into this hard. I'm not opposed to younger audiences learning about environmentally friendlier choices. In fact, I think it should probably be a part of education from kindergarten on up. I'm just not sure that putting it into an action platforming video game is really the way to get that message across. In fact, from my own personal experience when I was younger, I definitely did not enjoy people lecturing to me in times where I was supposed to be enjoying myself. Like, I'm watching Saturday morning cartoons, and then all of a sudden, an environmental PSA comes on and tells me to do my part, give a hoot, don't pollute. Those kind of things, even if well intentioned, became a joke. Those were things that kids would relentlessly mock and make fun of and do parodies of because nobody wants that when they're trying to have fun. And then again, Awesome Possum is not necessarily the easiest game to have fun with. The controls are very, very slippery, which is not an ideal choice in a game where you're moving at high velocity as you are here. There are hidden traps everywhere that, because you're moving at such high speed, it's almost impossible to avoid. There are bear traps in the ground. There are spikes in pits. There are chainsaw wielding robots. You're going to fly into things a lot. And each time you do, it takes a little chunk of your life bar at the top off. At least they give you a life bar that can take more than a few hits, but you are going to take those hits unless you memorize the position of everything in the level through repeated play. And repeated play is what Awesome Possum demands because you are not going to be awesome at this game from the get-go. And it's also something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you examine it beyond the cartoon logic that they've put into this game. For example, if this is about being awesome and saving the environment, which aren't things that necessarily have to correlate, why are there soda cans everywhere, and why are they things that you pick up for a boost? And what does that say to a kid playing it? Like, oh yeah, soda cans are awesome. Man, I need to drink more soda so I can be fast like Awesome Possum. Wouldn't that be the exact opposite of being environmentally friendly? Why would you want to collect cans? Well, maybe you're collecting them to recycle, but that's not entirely obvious. It's not like at any point Awesome Possum takes a bag full of cans to the recycling center and says, here, use these to create new cans and give me a little cash for them. That would be great. Thanks. That doesn't happen. But what does happen is you get a very ominous looking game over with a darkened screen and a whole bunch of tombstones that say, rest in peace. Did The Undertaker invade this environmental game? Who the hell knows? But let's take a look at the options menu since I had such a harsh death there and see if we can change anything. One thing you'll definitely want to change is the speech settings because Awesome Possum talks way too much. If you thought Bubsy the Bobcat was obnoxious, Awesome Possum is perhaps worse because Bubsy usually does it at the beginning or end of levels, and Awesome Possum just says random things all the time. But at least the designers of this game realized that could get old and included the option to turn him down or turn him off completely. So I will give them bonus points for that. Speaking of bonus points, there's environmental trivia questions about the planet and its inhabitants and environmental waste and all sorts of different eco-related things. So once again, they are leaning hard into this whole idea of kids are going to play this game and be educated while having fun at the same time. I am not saying that's impossible. I don't want you to think that. Sesame Street can do both of those things. The Electric Company did both of those things when I was a kid. So did 321 Contact. I'm not saying there's no way for education to be fun or for fun to be educational. I'm just saying when you really cram it down the throat of a video game like Awesome Possum, which is trying so hard to be awesome and rad and cool, then it becomes the opposite of those things. It's not, it's never going to be cool when you try to make it cool and put education in there in such a blatantly self-serving and pandering way. It's the very opposite of cool. It's like that skit from 30 Rock where Steve Buscemi says, "How do you do, fellow kids?" It's so wrong. It's not going to work. They had good intentions here, but the real problem is not their good intentions going awry by being so self-serving and over-the-top obnoxious. It's really the design of the game that is the biggest problem. The jerkiness of the animation in the foreground against the static animation. This is not parallax in any way. You can feel everything jutting left and right as Awesome Possum tries to move at breakneck speed, and the fact that the background is static only makes that worse. And these spike traps that are unavoidable, and these airplanes that swoop in on you. And if we're talking about design elements, why are there jet airplanes in the tropical rainforest? Again, where is the logic in this game? In its own world, it can't even make sense to itself, let alone to an outside perspective looking in on it. It's problematic. I'm not saying this is the worst game I've ever played on Genesis Does, because according to my good friend Jason Harlan, that would probably be Skitchin, which I gave such a scathing review of in a previous episode that he is now convinced this game needs to be my very own, how should I say it, albatross around my neck. It's apparently going to be the Dick Vitale's awesome, baby, of the Genesis Does series. Just like Scott the Woz has his thing, Skitchin is now my thing. But if I was to say I would recommend a game or not recommend a game, I would put this one higher on the not recommended list, because if you could take the time to memorize every single pratfall and every single trap and be patient enough to inch your way along, even though it wants you to fly along at high speeds, maybe you could eventually get good at this game and have some fun at it. But I don't have that kind of time or patience, and I'm going to take this ill-fitting Tengen cartridge out of my Analog Mega SG with force, because that's what it deserves. I had to forcefully put it in, I'm forcefully ripping it out, and I'm done with it.